Che boludo, ¿qué estás haciendo? I'm starting like this because I'm about a month away from moving to Buenos Aires, Argentina. Now, I speak a little bit of Spanish. I could say intermediate, but I do not sound like a local Argentinian person. Now, if you know anything about French, for example, the Quebec French versus the France French sound quite different. A lot of the slang is different. A lot of the vocabulary is different. The pronunciation is definitely very different. And so my objective when I get to Argentina is to put myself in my client's shoes and to, as quickly as possible, pass for a high level speaker, someone who feels confident, who feels fluent, and if I can pass for a native speaker, that would be fantastic. And so, if you haven't been following this already, watch my other videos where I'm documenting my level of Spanish improving. Now, at this moment in time, here are my strategies in order to get to that point. Up until this point, I haven't been doing very much. I'm in Toronto, I'm going through Montreal, Chicago, and I'm looking for opportunities to practice Spanish. Now, unfortunately, I'm not speaking with many Argentinian people, which means that I have to go out of my way to find out those unique elements. Part of what I've been doing is looking on Instagram for famous Instagrammers, influencers from Argentina. Now, I'm looking at comedians, I'm looking at actors, I'm looking at business people, and I'm watching things like the Argentinian president's address to the United Nations. Now, the reason I'm looking at all these different things is because my objective is to become somebody who's, comfortable and funny. So I'm watching, TikTok videos and comedians. My objective is also to be able to talk about things like world issues, politics, etc. So I'm watching the president speak at the United Nations. I'm watching business videos by specifically Argentinian people making instructional or otherwise talking about business. And so my goal is to be very well-rounded. And as these people are speaking, I notice in myself the blockages. I notice certain words that I don't recognize. I notice certain topics that feel to me challenging. Yeah, I can have a conversation. My pronunciation is decent, but I definitely don't sound like an Argentinian person, right? Si por ejemplo hablo un poco en español, tengo algunas cosas que estoy acostumbrado a hablar como los argentinos, como por ejemplo cortar la S. Pero yo sé que en Argentina hablan con la sh y no utilizan pollo, dicen pollo. Entonces yo tengo que acostumbrarme a esas cosas. But I've noticed here, just in speaking, in recording this video right now, that there are certain words, certain phrases that I lack. And so I have to actually reduce what it is that I'm saying. I have to reduce the content of what I'm saying. I also know that if I start speaking this way and I arrive in Argentina, they will immediately know that I'm not from there. And so when I arrive there, it's going to be a quick point of listening very attentively, starting activities that I enjoy, and actively studying the vocabulary and phrases needed to do that and say that well. Right now, I'm finding my objective, my first approach, is finding what I'm actually missing, right? My objective is to talk about business. I want to meet some entrepreneurs. I want to meet some fun people. I want to have funny conversations, right? And I want to be able to talk about things very generally and to go to a random shop and the person doesn't know that I'm not a local, right? And so in those things, I can focus on specific topics, right? I like talking about marketing. I love talking about business strategy, and I love talking about international politics and how society evolves. I love talking about these things. So if I think of a conversation that I would have in English, let's say I want to talk about climate change. I don't even know how to say climate change in Spanish, right? Just in mentioning this, I'm going to take note of climate change. How do I say this? What questions would I like to ask somebody about climate change? What kind of things would I say? What do I actually think about this, right? And so I make notes of those things. It can be in English at first, and then I notice the blockages. So if you're learning another language, right, and this is the same strategy that I've been using over and over and over for years, I imagine the specific situations I want to be in and then notice the blockage. Now, a lot of people at this moment, right, they notice the limitation of the vocabulary or the phrasing, and they freeze. Part of your goal as a language learner is to become fluent and easy. And your challenge, the thing that you need to integrate, is to avoid being blocked. And at the very least, learning to adapt quickly when you notice those situations. And so when I'm thinking in Spanish, I think in Spanish directly. I am actively not translating from English or French or whatever in my head. I think directly in Spanish. And if something blocks, or because I'm not able to say something, my interpretation is that I'm just a smaller person in Spanish. And so, within that, I notice the blockage, and it frees up extra mental space for me to think one or two steps ahead and anticipate where the next blockage is. So I can talk around those words, make notes for them, and then learn them for next time. Anyway, si quiero hablar en español, me doy cuenta que me falta mucho vocabulario. Puedo hablar de algunas cosas porque estoy un poco acostumbrado a hablar de algunas cosas, pero si quiero hablar de política o si quiero hablar de algo un poco más complicado, nutrición, no sé, todavía no tengo el vocabulario. Sé que mi pronunciación no es mala, pero yo sé que tengo que acostumbrarme por ejemplo, a la pronunciación argentina, al vocabulario, a las frases, a las expresiones, para que sea natural y fácil. Entonces, hoy en día, si quiero hablar de algunas cosas, si quiero hablar de economía, pues voy a tratar de hacerlo. La economía argentina es ahorita mismo en una posición un poco difícil porque hay inflación. Y para bajar la fuerza de la inflación en Argentina, eligieron un nuevo presidente en Argentina y él está cortando muchas cosas y está cortando cuánto gasta el gobierno. Do you see how, as I'm speaking here, right, I'm looking for words, I find them, but rather than blocking at certain moments, I change the way that I'm talking about it. Obviously, this is still an intermediate strategy, and my goal is to get to that top level. So keep an eye out for future videos where I'll be speaking more extensively in Spanish, hopefully, probably with Argentinian pronunciation, and I'll be following this process. So as I'm doing this, right, make notes of how I'm learning this, and you can use exactly the same process to improve whatever language you want to learn. Obviously, if you want to learn English, you want to have a natural pronunciation, natural vocabulary, high-level expressions, and potentially even pass for native speaker in just a few months. You can find a link in the description down below to book a call with me, and we can figure out the fastest way for you specifically to get there. Anyway, hope you're having fun, and I'll see you soon.